Hi, everyone. This is the 50 States Highpointing podcast and YouTube channel. What started off as a project for a communications class has turned into something that I actually love doing. I have the privilege of providing the platform for people to talk about the extraordinary things they do in the outdoors. Highpointing is the challenge of reaching the highest elevation in each of the 50 states. Highpointers don't get paid for their hobby. No one is sponsored by an outdoor company, and people fit this challenge into their everyday lives that also include careers and family. I found through these interviews that people who attempt this challenge are incredible and genuinely enjoy talking about their experiences. If you consider yourself a highpointer and you want to share your story on this podcast or interview, please send me an email at 50stateshighpointingpodcast@gmail.com. It has been a pleasure speaking with every highpointer. I hope you enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 50 States Highpointing Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, and the highpointer we're speaking with today is Scott from North Carolina. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Lauren. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, glad to have you. You're our first guest from North Carolina, and this is exciting for me because that was my first high point. So really looking forward to hearing your story. Yeah. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you got started in the outdoors and then ultimately what got you high pointing?
I guess I really got started. I've been into sports all my life, played basketball and ran track and baseball and stuff like that. Never was really outdoorsy until I got a look, more into my 20s and started adventuring and stuff. I went to Brevard College, and so I did a lot of camping and hiking and stuff around DuPont State Forest and things like that. So, 2013, there was this extreme hike that was coming up for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And I heard about it and thought that I'd like to do some sort of challenge, And it was 30.1 miles on the Appalachian Trail. And it was a one-day event. And we were paired with teams. There were about 70 of us that did it. And I was paired with the second team, which were the runners were first. There were some runners, and they went off. And then I was the second team. And I went with a good friend of mine that we had been hiking a little bit and training and stuff. And so we set out from Davenport Gap to Hot Springs. And that was a wake up call. I got out there and it was 4:00 in the morning and we started hiking and it was probably 20 degrees and the wind was coming through the ridge and I was freezing. And it was pretty cool because I kind of looked back at one point because we were on a pretty good pace, and I looked back and you just saw all these headlamps just kind of bobbing through the trails and stuff, and it was really cool. And then we got up on Max Patch there. I think that was we had 3 little stops, if you will, kind of refill stations, and I think Max Patch was one of the first ones, and that was just kind of blew my mind how amazing this vault was where you could see around. And so we finished it. Philip finished it in 10 hours and I did it in 10 and a half. I was a little bit behind him. He also has 10 years on me too at that point. So so we finished it and I was just like, what did I just do? I was pretty excited, and I couldn't believe I had done this. And so, I just wanted to put together another goal for myself, and I wanted to make more of a long-term goal. So I said, what can I do? And then I started looking at high points and stuff. And I'd already done Mitchell with Philip training and didn't really check it off. So I actually have to go back and do that one at some point, film it, because I film. And then, I just kind of document my whole journey through a video. And so I just started high pointing, and I started May 2016, and it was Sassafras Mountain was my first one in
Oh,
South Carolina.
perfect.
So
So, yeah, when you started high pointing, did you know that it was like a community, an endeavor, an activity, a
uh,
club, or did you think that it was just kind of something that you'd see if, you could check
yeah,
off?
I didn't know much about it until I really started doing a little more research into the stuff and found out there was the
Hmm.
high pointing club and
Yeah.
and just finding people in general that did it through Instagram, which I'm
Mhm.
not on any kind of other social media other than that one, which I started about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's really kind of opened a whole big, world to hiking and outdoors and anything that you love.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And then you mentioned that you went to Brevard
yeah,
College, and that's a beautiful
it
area out there, especially for hiking. I mean, that's great
yeah,
exposure to the
it
outdoors.
really it was my being from Charlotte, it was my first time away from home, and I really didn't know what to expect. I really loved the mountains, and the winters were a little chilly, but
Hmm.
we had a good time, and so I think that kind of really just set it into me like, man, this is really cool. Like the outdoors has a lot to offer.
It does. You're right. So you start in 16 now. Can you walk us through your high pointing journey with some of your most memorable high points, whether they were memorable for good reasons or
Yeah.
bad reasons?
Um, so I've really had I've completed 21, and I've really had great weather on every one of them, which I'm kind of a
That's good.
weather like I'm tracking it like every second, and I try to
Yeah.
plan out a hike like a month in advance, maybe two, and I just do
Okay.
massive research and I go on maps and I look at things and I really the preparation is important. I feel like
You're
so
right.
many people are like, oh, this is easy, and they go out and then they find themselves in a pickle and you just need to be
Yeah.
prepared. I mean, it's very important. So learning my stuff and then just going out and experiencing it, it's great. It's a bit of a rush. When you're driving these high points and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're driving to Mount Rogers and you're like, man, this is going to be a great day. And you get there and it's just better day. You got the
Yeah.
ponies and it's such a cool place.
Right.
I
Hmm.
think maybe I was in Spruce Knob and in West Virginia, and I got about 3 miles in, and I also try to do 5 miles or more, and on every peak, whether it's one
Okay.
trail or multiple trails, but I'd like to at least get 5 miles done. I know
That's
some of
good.
them are short, and you can just like Indiana or Ohio. I just kind of walked
Yeah, just get out
up
of the
and down
car.
some
Yeah.
roads and around the cornfields. But Spruce Knob, I was 3 miles into this hike and I like severely twisted my ankle. And I'm like, all right, do I hike, you know, the 3 miles back and I call it a day. And I just, driven 8 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm going, and so I see this group of people, and I'm like, hey, do you guys know if there's a creek down below? Because it's fairly chilly out, but so I got down to this creek, Judy Springs, and I just sat there and just put my ankle, in this water for like 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and it was great, and I'm like, all right, I'm feeling awesome, and I had 8 more miles to go, so
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. One
yeah,
way?
I was like, I was gonna do the 11 miles, So I lace them up and hike back out, and I do my my thing at the top, and then I get back to the parking lot, and there's this lady, and she's walking, and she sees my ankle. I've got my shoes off. I'm trying to pack everything up in the car, and she goes, "Hon, that ankle looks pretty bad." And I'm like, "Yeah, I ran out of Advil in my pack. Not prepared." So said, well, let me run back to my car and get you some. And I said, oh, no, you really don't have to. And no, I insist, So she ran back and got some Advil. And that was great for the 8-hour ride home,
For
the
the
right
ride
foot, so my
home.
gas pedal and the brake. So it really was kind of a, all right, this can happen, but, I don't ever want to give up, just, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously if I'm, I got a broken leg or something, then I'm not going to be do it, but, sprained ankle or
Sure.
like
You got to
that,
be
I'm
sensible. Yeah.
so.
So now you said I get to the top, I do my
Mhm.
thing. What is that thing?
So I do a hike dedication for every peak that pertains to a person in my life, either a family
Yeah.
member or a friend, or even somebody that I've met and we've become friends, and then. So pertain then and they pertain to that state. So, for instance, when I did Elbert with my wife in 2020, I have an aunt and uncle and three cousins that live out in Colorado, and obviously that was for them, and they
Yeah.
were very skeptical that I was going to make it because my uncle is he's part of the Park Service, and so he said, if you're not down off that mountain by 5, I'm calling a rescue team. And I said, I can promise you I will be down before 5, and I'll even call you. So, and I did. Elbert was a fun one. Went. It was the second hike with my wife. I've done 19 alone, and Rhode Island I did with my wife and her cousin that lives there, and then
Okay.
so Elbert, Meg and I did that, and you know what? It was I. I got a new, um, just a new feeling in my life, and for her when we did that, because it was
Yeah.
just it was a great bonding moment for us. We had been married already for 3 years, and it was just I don't know, it was something really awesome that we did, and um, I'm so glad we did that. It was
That's
long.
really
It was
special.
so long.
Yeah.
It took us, I think we did it in 11 hours, 10, no, 10 and a half hours actually, because we started about 6:30 and we finished around 4:30. So, I mean, we did about 14 miles, and the
Wow.
false summits. She was like, "We're here," and I'm like, "No, we're not.
Ooh, are we?
Got a ways to go." So, coming back down was a little disheartening, just because it's a little harder going down than up, I think, because
I
of
know. I
the
know. Yeah.
knees and the just the rock scrambles down, the switchbacks, and so it was I was ready to be done and be down once we got to the tree line, and then we still had
Sure.
like 3 more hours.
No, you're not.
Yeah. So, but we got down, and right as we're walking out, I kind of you know grab her hand, and I'm like, we go in together, we go out together, because at the,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred yards from the summit, and she kind of sits down and she's like, Scott, I don't know if I can do it, and I'm like, you've got this. I'm like, if you need to rest for an hour, like take it, but it's
Yeah.
right there. Like, it is right there.
Yep.
And, you've come all this way. We've flown in to see our family. Like, if you want to go back, we'll go back, and I'll come back and do it another day. Like, that's not a problem. She said, no, we're
Mhm.
doing this. So, she hopped up, and,
Good.
and we finished. I was
Good.
so proud of her. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. I had a podcast guest. His name was Mike, and he does a lot of work in the outdoors and like teaching people. He's a
Yeah.
minister, so he does a lot of ministry in the outdoors because the connection that you make with people in the outdoors, he has found, is extra
Yeah.
special than any other activity that you would partake in within a community setting. And there are so many things that you can learn about yourself, about others, and about life through experiences in the
Yep.
outdoors. I mean, it was just like the first story that you told about the 30-mile AT. It's like you learned a lot about
Yeah.
yourself, and then this Elbert summit was probably very pivotal in your relationship as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It was, yeah, she jokes because, we'll tell people, and she's like, I think we were actually going to get divorced on that mountain at some point, because I really hated you. And I was like, well, don't, I found funny though that when she got down, because, she's not a high pointer at all, but she goes, so what's number two? And I'm like, well, I mean,
She wants to do
I
another
think she
one.
might want to do another one. So I think we
Yeah,
might start that and kind of playing little trips, and make it
of
make it.
course.
So I've finished everything on the East Coast except Marcy, Mansfield, Frizzle, Katahdin. So
Okay.
everything East Coast is pretty much done. And
So you've done Mount Washington.
I'm sorry, I left out Mount Washington. I haven't done Washington yet. So
Okay.
so those sticks
Okay.
up there, and I'll probably do those in the next year or two. But the West is going to be a little more challenging. Just because I drive to all my high points. I
Yeah.
pack a car, sleep in the car. I've stayed at one hotel when I did High Point in New Jersey, and then I did uh, Delaware, and I also
Okay.
did Fort Reno as a little extra bonus. And I did that in
In one day?
I think I did it in like 36 hours or maybe less. But yeah, so I drove up and I went New Jersey and then came down.
Wow.
So, but I did stay in a hotel in like Port Jervis or something, and I could see the monument. At High Point they had this monument, and I could see it from my hotel.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be over there tomorrow. But yeah, so I've done
Yeah.
every one except Rhode Island and Elbert in the car, and it's a little it's fun, but it's a little scary at the same time. I park normally and I'll go to the campgrounds in the parks, or I'll hit up rest stops. I was in a pretty cool rest stop in Paducah, Kentucky, which is this like
Okay.
old 1800 mansion that they made into a rest stop, and you can go in and like see all these cool old photos of it when it was this Victorian home. And so I spent the night there
Wow.
and did. I think that was when I was going out to um, Arkansas and doing the Arkansas.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's kind of a fun journey to do, in the car, and but also a little weary sometimes too, because I don't get the best sleep, and you're kind of cramped up. I've
Sure.
got a Subaru out,
Well,
so it's nice. I can kind of lay down and spread out, so
that
kind of work.
helps. That
Yeah,
helps for sure. But it's cool the way that you do it because you're really proving that you don't have to like take a bunch of time off of work and save up this pile of
right.
money to, go around and travel and do high points. Possibly later down the road, that's going to be the
Right.
reality. You do have
Yeah.
to, put down some money for some of these peaks, um, and some time
Yeah.
certainly. But this is really you're showing how accessible it
It
is
is.
from where you are.
It's really it's right there for everybody to do. If a lot of them
Mhm.
have the drive ups, I tend to walk up, and but yeah, anybody can access them, and it's a good it's just a good thing for yourself, to go out and kind of
Yeah.
enjoy what life has to offer, really.
Yeah. What have you seen throughout your travels that that surprised you or that you've learned?
Um, I've come across a lot of great people through different little small
Hmm.
towns, and they often ask, what I'm doing, and because I wear this shirt everywhere, it says "Just a Kid from Charlotte."
Really?
I wear it on,
I thought it was just for the
so
podcast.
every summit I have this on, and I have
That's
the high
cool.
pointer shirt that I'll put on and take pictures with as well. But my
Okay.
uncle Vince from New York got me this shirt, and so I wear it everywhere, and it's kind of a cool little thing.
That's
I have
cool.
met some really cool people, and I was in when I did the hike in Mississippi. I thought it would be cool to go down to Tupelo, where Elvis was from, and so I
Yeah.
took the hour drive down to Tupelo and saw his birth house, and I also found out that there was this little diner that he used to go to a lot. So okay, cool, I'll go to this diner, and I walk in,
That's fun.
and all the heads just like everybody in there just turned and like, who's this guy? I'm out of town. It's like I stuck out like a sore thumb. So I'm all kind of, just look ragged from hiking, and I'm, getting ready to drive
Yeah.
10 hours back to Charlotte. And so, but it was cool. I had a good time and got to see some cool stuff too. So I try to do that on my hikes, and I'll maybe plot out some restaurants or stuff that's maybe around in that area that people really talk about, and so you just kind of immerse
Hmm.
yourself in that environment and those areas, and kind of learn from it and just enjoy it. Like so many
You're
so many
right.
parts of this country have so much to offer, and people are kind of just in this like bubble sometimes of their area, and don't realize that there's just so much out there. I mean, you get to see so much through the high points, but
I agree.
traveling as well. You see so much.
So, are you a member of the High Pointers Club?
I am. I became a member 2 or 3 years ago. I
Cool.
haven't been to any
Cool.
conventions yet, which I'm looking forward to doing that.
Which is your favorite high point out of the ones that you've done?
Um, I would have to say, uh, I'd have to say Elbert and
Okay.
and Spruce Knob in West Virginia for some reason was just I really like that terrain, and then that area was really cool. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think Elbert, just because it was my first 14er that I had ever done, so I was pretty just blown away by the fact that I could do it. And I mean, I had trained for a while to do it, and I consider myself in pretty good shape. But I just didn't know what to expect. We were out there a few days before we actually hiked, and we were kind of doing some biking and some running, and just kind of getting adjusted to the altitude. My aunt lives in Edwards, which is just right outside of Vail. So it was about a 2 hour
Okay.
drive, 2 hour drive to Elbert from her house, and so we just took a couple days to get used to everything, and we really didn't have a problem. Uh,
That's
you
good.
know, Meg would sit a few times and kind of catch her breath and do that stuff, but it was just it was a very eye opening experience. It was great. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much.
So, what's your next high point?
Um, I, I really want to do Marcy before the fall. I have a
Okay.
grandmother that lives in Verona, New Jersey. So I think it's about 3 hours from her house. So I was gonna maybe go and see her and spend some time with her, and then go up and knock that out. And so I'd like to say Marcy, but I I tried to plan um, my my magazine mountain trip for like 2 years, and COVID hit, and then
Hmm.
I had to push it back.
Oh, yeah.
And then I don't know if you heard about this, but I-40 had that bridge that um, collapsed or whatever, and that was like my
Yeah, I did hear
yeah, it
about
was
that.
my
Yeah.
route going out
Hmm.
there, and I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So I chalked that, and I got that done in 2022. So I missed all
Okay.
of 2021. I didn't get anything. Um, I started off strong in 16 and got like 6 or 7, and then
Yeah.
a few in 2017, and then there it kind of just tapered off a little bit. But in 2020, I got like 6 or 5 or 6. So I was like, all right, I need to be on a certain pace. The whole goal was to get 50 and do Denali when I was 50. I'm 42 years old, so
Oh,
I
that's
got eight
cool.
years, but I don't
That's
know if
cool.
that's going to be obtainable. It may be, it may not be, but I'm going to get them all done.
Yeah.
I mean,
Regardless of, whether or not you get 50 before 50, that is such a cool goal just to try to
yeah,
reach.
I just thought,
Even if you get 50 after 51,
right.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
I could do 51 because Fort Reno, we'll just, you know, we'll put Denali on. But yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be amazing to do all these taller peaks. Granite, Gannett, Whitney. You've done Whitney. So I
Yeah.
mean, obviously Rainier, and so I'm looking forward to that. And I think I probably waited on those just to get a little more experience. It can never
Yep,
hurt.
that's wise.
Can
Yeah.
never hurt to
Hmm.
know what you're getting yourself into. And I think
You're right.
I prepared for Elbert pretty well, but I could have done some things different. It just one of
Sure.
those things where it was just kind of, all right, let's do this. So
Yeah. Well, I think getting the experience in and the training physically, that's always good.
right,
But I think throughout doing that, you get to know yourself more.
right,
And that is so important when you're on a higher peak because I've talked to so many people who were like, I should have turned around, or I'm like, I'm so glad I turned
yeah,
around. Because sometimes, you can have all the motivation in the world, but you just got to
yeah,
know when to
yeah.
call
You
it
do, you do.
sometimes.
I mean,
And you get that by knowing yourself and how you perform. And I don't know if you listened to this guy, Dean. He was, I think, episode 3.
yep,
He did granite with a team, and there was one team member who said, I don't I don't feel I'm putting you guys in
right,
danger if I go
yeah,
up. And that kind of self-awareness is huge. So, and as you get to these bigger peaks, you do become part of a
sure,
team. And it's
yeah,
awesome, and it's like kind of scary too, but having the training and the awareness that's big.
yeah. I look forward to doing that because of the team oriented aspect of it.
Mhm.
I just I
Yeah.
never do them alone. That's just setting yourself up for failure. Um, yeah, the team going
Mhm.
with the team, and you build off that, and then you have a friend for life. I mean, you you do something
Absolutely, you
you do
do.
cool
Yeah.
like that, and you got an automatic friend for life for sure.
You're right. So you talked about on Mount Elbert how you trained a little bit before you did that hike by biking and doing other activities at the altitude wherever you were. What equipment do you find very useful while high pointing that maybe people wouldn't think
Right.
about?
So obviously, always do the pack with the water bladder. You know, food and just your first aid gear. Um, I
Yeah.
really I really don't set out with much more than that. I take some trekking poles sometimes. If I didn't
Hmm.
use trekking poles in Elbert, which I I almost kind of wish I would have, because it's just like having four legs, you know. Um, but
I never thought
yeah,
about it like that, but you're
like an
right.
extra set of legs are amazing, especially
Yeah.
doing that extreme hike. And we were hitting, we were going fast. Those poles were a lifesaver.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't
Hmm.
like to take too much, and I feel like not really the bare necessities, but enough to get you by, not enough to weigh you down. Um, I usually hike pretty light. It was funny. I did Elbert in
Yeah.
I did Elbert in Nike running shoes. I kid you not. I have some Solomon boots, and I took them with me, and they were laying on the floor of the condo, and I looked at them and I go, "You're not coming on this trip with me." So I left the back of the house that day, and I just put on my running shoes, and I kind of I was okay. I was kind of okay. I didn't know just how heavy they were going to be at the end, when you're walking with
Sure.
dead legs. And so that was kind of dumb on my part to do that, but at the same time I was kind of like, whoa, that kind of worked out. But yeah,
For sure.
any other.
Well, then you always hear about people like trail running up
Oh man,
Elbert.
that's crazy.
So,
I will tell you a really cool story. When we were going up, it was probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and there's a guy coming down, and he kind of stops in front of us, and I'm like, what's going on, man? And he's like, beautiful sunset this morning, I got to go hit Massive. And I'm like, what? This guy is going to do Mount Massive across the way. And I was blown away
wow.
by the fact that this guy had just done Elbert, and he's going to do Massive, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's already down. And Meg
Wow.
looked at me, and she's like, do you think he's going to finish? And I was like, absolutely, that guy's finishing, you know? And and I didn't know the
Yeah.
story of Mount Massive until I got there. They thought that was the high point for so long. And they actually had
I heard that.
this festival in July, I believe, they would do this trek up to Mount Massive. And then guess when the geological survey, you know, people came in and did Elbert, they're like, you guys have been hiking not the tallest peak. So I bet a lot of people's like, it's kind of one. So, but it was, I would like to do Massive. It looked really neat, but, we just
Mhm.
obviously didn't have the time that day. And, boy, the next day we were hurting. My legs were toast.
Yeah.
And we walked around Breckenridge and shopped all day. And I'm like, I don't want to do anything. It was awful.
Yeah. So, do you have any more memorable moments from high points, or you're traveling in between high points?
Um, come across a few animals. I ran across a bear in Brasstown Bald in Georgia, and it was right. Yeah, it
Really?
was. It was a baby cub, and it was like maybe, oh, I would say quarter, half a mile to the from the trailhead. So I end up parking, and so I often go on Mondays or Tuesdays where nobody's there. So I'm hiking
Yeah.
early in the morning, nobody's there, so it's usually me, and it was a bit foggy and kind of just that misty fog, and I'm hiking, and every little rustle, I'm just
Yep.
looking over my shoulder and going, all right, when's mom coming, and I never did.
I
I
know. That's my
did
next
see another
question.
bear. Yeah, I never did see her. I never did see the cub again, but I was sure looking over my shoulder for about 3 miles. I was super scared because I didn't have any bear
Wow.
spray, because I was like, oh, there are bears in our Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, but you just kind of, you don't really see them a lot. But it's a little little intimidating.
I know.
Other than that, haven't really had any kind of crazy, haven't broken down, knock on wood, or had any kind of flat tire
That's
on the
good.
road, which is great. And I've had excellent,
Yeah.
which I can, you can never trust Mother Nature, right? But she's been good to me for hiking.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even on Elbert,
Oh, that's perfect.
I told Megan, I said, we can hang out up here at the summit for a bit, but I think we reached the top about 1 o'clock or maybe before that. And I said, but we really do need to, make it quick and snappy, take some pictures and get down. Cause you never know what happens. And I don't want to get caught in that. And, you don't either. So it's,
no.
I mean, I've been very lucky on that for sure.
That's good. I hope it stays that
Me
way.
too.
So, what are the benefits of high pointing that you've seen throughout these years doing it by yourself and with your wife?
I think hiking by yourself, you really learn your limits. You learn obviously a lot about yourself. What you what you strive for, and it's rewarding. It's a great mental health for that being such a big thing in society right now.
I agree.
It's amazing, and just being out in nature in general. I think you get connected in a different way, other than through a television or a camera, or I mean, it's just another experience, and it's been so good to do the hikes with Megan too, because it's just it's brought us so much closer together, and it's something you can enjoy. And you have your little riffs, and oh my god, how long is this? But you look back and you're like, man, that was awesome. And I think a lot of people really don't think that they have the time for it, like you said, and they don't realize that it's just kind of it's there, it's not going anywhere, but you got to make the effort, and you have to be willing to put yourself in another limit that you might not do in life. So I really think it's a benefit for everything. So
yeah, I agree. So during all these drives that you take from North Carolina to these different high points, do you listen to any books, documentaries, or podcasts about outdoor adventure that you'd recommend to listeners?
You know what? I'm a big podcast guy. I normally listen to like crime stories and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
but
that stuff. Yeah.
I do kind of get into. Obviously, your podcast has been awesome. I really enjoyed.
Thanks.
But I've not read a ton of books on hiking or anything. I did read a book by Eustace Conway, which he's from North Carolina. He's kind of one of the last frontier, I guess, if you will. And he kind of he has a little area in North Carolina called Turtle Creek, or I think it's
oh my gosh, I read a book about him. Oh my gosh, really I forgot about him.
So that book is really cool. And there's another one that I recently saw, and it's about a guy who I think is the only guy who still has ever walked the perimeter of the Grand Canyon. And it's pretty amazing feat if you think about it, because I've been to the Grand
It is. Usually you just hear about people doing the rim to
Exactly.
rim, but not the
Yeah,
perimeter.
he's done
That's really
the entire
interesting.
perimeter. And I don't know how long that
Wow.
is, but it sounds awful.
I know.
It sounds so long. But yeah,
Wow.
I look. I should probably look to more books, and it kind of opens that new world for you, or you can learn a lot from other people and get some tips for sure.
Mhm.
You can never not have enough tips.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you brought up Ulysses Conway because I think maybe 10 years ago, I read a book called The Last American Man.
That's it. That's the
And it
book,
was by,
I think. Yeah.
yeah, it was by that woman. I think she wrote Eat, Pray, Love
Mm-hmm.
too. What's her name?
Uh,
I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll put it in the show
Cool.
notes or whatever. But I was just so impressed by his lifestyle.
Very cool.
And I remember I was like, yeah, he is somewhere in the woods in North Carolina. And I just, even when I lived in North Carolina, I didn't remember it.
Right.
But he really is the last of his kind that we know of.
Yeah.
He's just an off the grid kind
Very.
of pioneer,
Yeah.
but he doesn't do it for the trend.
No. He,
That is just how he lives.
yeah. I mean, he's got. There's no machinery. He does it all hand stuff. He
Yeah,
have students and stuff that come and help him, and that stay on the property,
that's right.
and they will help him, build houses or wells or whatever, till the gardens, or do that stuff. But I mean, he got a
Yeah,
horse out there doing a tiller. I mean, that is unbelievable.
I
I mean,
know.
people just don't.
Yeah,
The people don't understand how hard that is, and I think if you also relate that to hiking and high pointing, and I think a lot of people go, oh, you're just you did the high point, that's cool, but it takes so much more. It takes so much planning. It takes so much. It's just a lot more than what people initially see.
absolutely it is. One last thing about that book. I remember specifically he said, or the author said about him, he uses all these natural products. It all comes from nature, obviously, and he just does everything by hand except his plastic bucket.
That's crazy.
He's like, I don't know where I would be without the plastic bucket. That is just one of the greatest inventions. I was like, yeah, actually, that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know what you would do before that.
That's so crazy. Yeah. What a crazy.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that doesn't know about high pointing, maybe doesn't know much about the outdoors, but is kind of looking for something in life to motivate them, or they're just kind of wondering about how to learn more about themselves?
I would say just the first thing is get up and do it. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's putting yourself into gear. It's thinking about people who can't do it. People
Mhm.
who can't walk, or people who can't, anything that, something that somebody can't do and you can. You should be able to 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 take that to the limit. You should
Mhm.
push. You should push. We only get one life, and you got to live it. I mean, you really have to just go, and it's so great because you feel so good at the end, and you have such a, um, something big to look back on.
Yeah,
After I finish all these, I'm just gonna kind of look back and say, wow, that was
I know.
amazing. Why didn't I do that sooner? So I would say, just get up and go do it, and make somebody else want to do that. Put a
Yeah,
trend. Make a path. Set an example. I think it's big.
that's
I think
awesome.
it's big to teach other people, and to and do it as a group too. It's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so many people are alone, and they need that group mentality, or they need those people in their lives, and it's a perfect community for people to do that and reach new people, and kind of find a passion in life.
I agree. That's very well said. It reminds me of have you ever watched the movie or read the book Into the Wild by John Krakauer?
I've seen the movie.
Yeah. So do you remember at the end when Chris McCandless is in the bus and he's just withering away, writing in his journal, and he's been alone in the wilderness for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote something along the lines of how we're not meant to do life alone.
Right.
Like it's cool getting out there sometimes, just being by yourself, but we're meant to connect with other people. And that was something that he learned, unfortunately, the hard way out there, know?
Yeah. That's what a great movie. I know the book, bet the book's better. But it's just people do need that, and people do need their alone time and finding themselves. But man, if you can pair up with somebody, it's amazing.